upon EOR, it says 7.5. Trying to understand where is that misevaluation happening. Well, it's a very common question indeed, but you have to understand that it can happen. That's why you have the chance of the EOR, so, because mistakes can happen. Okay, let's check out collocations. Now, once again, using collocations is major, but you can only use it if you're sure and you're confident that it fits in. Don't shove it in just for the sake of putting in a collocation, okay? Can Manaza, can I write neutral background statement for all essays? Ideally, you should, definitely, you should write a background statement, a neutral background statement for all essays. And the curious thing here is that when we say neutral background statement, neutral meaning that it's impartial. Let's suppose that basically anyone who reads it will understand, agree, and it will introduce the overall topic. Let's check this out. So collocations, what are collocations? They are words that fit together frequently and naturally. So it just sounds right. Kathleen, when do I use comma in the sentence? Oh, okay. In many different situations. It's hard to just start to list it out here. Commas are quite peculiar and tricky. I would say it's the most tricky punctuation in English. So I highly recommend that you go for a tutorial to understand comma use. Comma use is very important for your score and for understanding as well. So examples of collocations, heavy traffic, and then we have dire consequences. There are many collocations. We're going to do a little exercise now to get started. 45 seconds for you to put these collocations together. Okay, here we go. Focus now. Okay, great. Here we go. The answers. So now collocations are something very interesting. There are lists of collocations, but they're not so useful. I mean, it's useful, but the best way to really learn collocations is by you can read the list, become familiar with that list, but you have to read. And it's a process. As you read, you will start to recognize the collocations because you've looked at the list, you've read the list. That's the first step. It's the first part of the process, reading and recognizing the preposition. The collocations. The second step will be for you to start to use these collocations and to put them in your writing or your speaking. So it's kind of like a process. You read the list, you become familiar with the possibilities of collocations, then you start reading and listening and you recognize these collocations, and then you will start to produce them, to use them. So it is a process. Today's task, let's look into today's task. Okay, Jackfried, instead of depends on, can we always use the collocation rely on? Not necessarily. They do have different meanings to a certain extent. Okay, so this is our task for today. You rent an apartment and recently a new tenant moved in above you, this tenant's behavior is causing you a lot of problems. Write a letter to your landlord. In your letter, describe what the new tenant is doing. Explain why it is disturbing you so much. Tell the landlord what you would like him or her to do about it. You have to start your letter as follows. Dear Miss Kim, just remembering that every time you have the titles Mr., Ms., and Mrs., always with a surname, family name, okay? So we have here now the letter. We have to start to plan. Before you do anything, essay, academic writing, general writing, always think of planning. Planning really saves you a lot of time. So you have to read the prompt carefully and you have to make notes for each bullet point. You have to pay equal attention and develop equally all bullet points. So definitely planning is going to help you avoid repetition. It's going to help you generate ideas. Now remember that our mindset in neurolinguistics studies have been conducted and this like already guaranteed. The results are out. The findings are already out. Our mindset has different ways of functioning. So when we're generating, when we're reading the prompt and generating ideas and making these notes, our mind is kind of like in a rush mode. It's really thinking about ideas. It's not focused on grammar or anything like that. It's ideas, that kind of like that brainstorming. Once you start writing, your mindset will change modes. It will go into that flow. It's not anymore into that rush mode. So you start writing and your mindset changes and goes into a stream. Suddenly, if you didn't plan and you don't have your ideas set out and noted down, you'll have to stop that flow, go back to that mode of generating ideas and brainstorming, then go back to the flow. So this back and forth movement, it's very exhausting, and it really puts you off in terms of staying on topic and vocabulary and structure. So definitely you have to plan ahead before you start writing. That rush and that brainstorming. Once you start writing, you'll go into a flow. So don't interrupt that either. Okay? So here we go. 1 minute for your planning. My question is, chat box open or closed? Let me know here because we're sharing. Would you guys like to share information with the chat box open or close it not to distract you guys? Close, open. I I'd like some more participations, please, so we can try to make it as fair as possible. Okay, so it does say close. Let's close it down then, so that it won't interrupt you guys. And we'll be back with the ideas of other students when we finish this. Okay, 1 minute now for you guys to have that rush mode. We'll be back. Excellent. Very well. Some very nice ideas. But curiously, pets is a very frequent one. So pets seem to be a little bit disturbing to some extent. Okay, so now that you have your plan, let's see. This my plan. So children and dogs are making noise all the time. So that's the problem. So what the new tenant is doing. I work from home. This is distracting and unprofessional. So why is it disturbing you? And also remind tenant of noise restrictions and consider carpeting apartment. So that would be one of the solutions, right? So notes are done. Now we can move on. You can keep your notes and use your notes. Definitely, you guys had this right. What kind of letter is this? Some of you already put it in the chat box. Exactly. It's a semi-formal letter. Perfect. And now that you've already noted down your points and your ideas. So consider how well you know the landlord. Perhaps you know him or her well, or perhaps you've never met. So that's something to take into consideration.